So good morning and welcome to Wharf Station, and the month of May has seen a number of celebrations at the Tal Llyn. Obviously last week was our 70th anniversary and we celebrated that in Fair Star, and because we like a celebration we're going to celebrate something equally not quite as special but certainly a significant part of our history. So on the 22nd of May 1976, which was 45 years ago today, the Nant Gwynel extension was finally opened after many years of, I think, wrangling and construction and sweat and toil. And during the day we're going to be interviewing some of the key people that made that happen and see how many bad backs they've created and all those things like that. So up until the 21st of May 1976, the railway only ran publicly as far as Abergynolwyn, and the facilities at Abergynolwyn were far from ideal. Today we have a nice cafe and toilets and everything else, but back in the day it was a mobile tea room and a bit of a shelter, and that was about it, no toilets. So as the demand increased for, the public's expectations increased, then Abergynolwyn had to be bolstered a bit, and that was bolstered by actually the demolition of the Winding House, which we would never do today because it would be sacrilege for getting rid of such a piece of heritage. But the Winding House linked the railway with the town of Abergynolwyn, the village of Abergynolwyn, and that was taken down and made into a lot of what you see today at Abergynolwyn Station. The mineral extension, which went from Abergynolwyn to Nant Gwynel, wasn't fit for public traffic. It basically hung on to the side of a cliff in some scary sort of parts and really was a sheer drop. So before we could actually open it for public use, it had to be widened, and there was a lot of blasting and rock moving, and you'll hear some of the tales about what these people had to go through. Now, the gang that were the pioneers of building the extension were called Gwyrns, because obviously they were going to Nant Gwynel, and it was a group of people that perhaps enjoyed blowing things up and digging things and moving rocks, and we'll be meeting some of them today during the journey. So I think it was quite a momentous thing. It was the thing to do. The Festiniog got extended, so I think the Tal Llyn wants to extend as well. There's no way we can go any further. We are at the top of our railway now, so thank God I don't have to oversee something like that. But it was quite an extension. It's a stunning gorge to get to. Tom Rolt, who was the general manager then, had great ideas of actually making quite a significant terminus of Nant Gwynel, but it was decided that Abergynolwyn would be the main sort of cafe and facility, which I do thank him for, because the access to Nant Gwynel is challenging at best. So enjoy today. We're going to get some great films and some great characters and see number 4 take the headboard all the way to Nant Gwynel. The headboard is quite precious. It's a museum artefact now. It won't be on the front of the train the whole way because it is made of cardboard and papier-mâché, but it's quite splendid. And the actual day was opened by Winfred Vaughan Thomas, who was the then BBC reporter, celebrity, so it was quite a big thing and covered far and wide. So enjoy the day and enjoy the trip.
When the extension was first mooted, back I think in 1968, they had a ceremonial blasting of the first bit of rock just round the corner from Abergynolwyn, which Bob had set up, and Tom Rolt gave the speech and pressed the button, and there was a loud bang and rock flew everywhere, and the show was started. You see, but it being in the works, I didn't get involved with doing much whirling, but we were doing a supportive number down there because the destruction rate of plant up there was quite good, and we said we could never make things perfect, but we could try and make them whirl resistant, and dead things would come down on the train, and we'd bring them in the works, and while the train was at Wharf being serviced, we'd repair them and send them back on the next train, and it was jolly fun like that.
My involvement with the extension started really with the AGM in 1970, when Tom Rolt ignited the first sort of demonstration charge, which blew up a bit of the rock just round the corner from Abergynolwyn station. I was then away for a bit because things like exams and not being able to drive got in the way. But once I could drive, I started coming down fairly regularly and was involved mainly in shifting rock at that stage because most of the work was heavy excavation.
Right, first visited in '68. My brother became a member in '74 and started gwerning. And then we started in Easter '75 because I was doing a guide badge at the time, which was like a community service thing. So I was doing some gwerning and I was doing some bell ringing as my thing, and John Bate would sign off the gwerning bit. So we started, and I met my husband then as well, so we've been together since I was 13. Yeah, basically. So he started about the same time as me, and the whole family, my brother, my sister, who's now on the loco, and me, were gwerns, basically.
Well, my brother worked the summer '73, and Jill and I got interested in the Preservation Society as well. So we joined in September '73, and then we first worked in Easter '74 and started working then.
On the extension, things were a bit freer and easier.
They were indeed, yes.
Yes.
But not necessarily restful.
No, it's what I call, when I go out with the outdoor gang now, character building.
Yes, so that's a good term.
The average day was digging stuff into wagons, and then maybe at the end of the day you were tipping stuff out of wagons.
That's it, yes.
And then the first thing next morning you might be going to get the wagons back from the bottom of the tip. But
Yeah.
if you did it wrong.
Yes. Well, at least when we went to tip the wagons, we had a cup of tea
Oh,
ready
yes.
for us.
And an ice cream.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, yes, my favourite memory would be there was a tipping siding at Abergynolwyn when they were extending the platform, and we used to tip the wagons over the side. That was always a bit of fun. And basically the camaraderie was good fun as well, yes.
I think it was just a bit of pioneering going especially round towards the end, and we had to dig out rail from the old track, and we immediately put it into the temporary track, having dug it up from under the turf when we went onto the station. Sort of little things like that. And we found a little horseshoe up there, so presumably that might have been from one of the ponies working up on the next level. So, and I say it was just learning to use all these different tools and using axes, and so lots of fun. It was a little world apart from the rest of the railway.
So one they did when they on Big Bend, when they were blasting the rock. There's a wonderful display, very 1418 war, and one or two people at Abergynolwyn were complaining to the railway that slates were landing on their roofs and breaking the slates on the roof. So we thought some of these claims might be a bit exaggerated. So we used to put a sentry up on the quarry road, watching the village when the bangs went off. And I did it one day, and I thought, oh, I can't really see what's going on. So I went further up the hill, and there was a loud bang, and there was a whistle, and a great chunk of rock landed beside me. So I retreated my steps until the drop there. But that day, nothing landed on the village. So that was another jolly day.
It was all good memories. One very bad memory, but I could go into that if you like. The layout at Abergynolwyn station has a siding, a small siding, which was originally quite a deep pit, and we had to fill this up to make the base for the siding. The material for filling the hole was rock much further up the line. I was fetching this down with loco number 5 and some tipper wagons to a gang who then tipped the wagons and spread it in the pit until we built the pit up to full height. While I was filling a train of wagons with the old 10RB excavator, I noticed that the wagons had disappeared and had taken themselves off down the line. I had this gang working at the other end, which was therefore a very dangerous situation. I jumped onto number 5 and roared up after the train, but couldn't catch it. And fortunately, the tipping gang heard the loco coming and thought, oh, it's, you know, we can stop for a breather, and all stood back. Whereupon the wagons rushed into their work site and all piled themselves up in a great heap, which could have been extremely dangerous. So that was a very bad moment. Well, the rock face there was here in effect, and all this had to go. One of the problems was cleaning loose rock after blasting off a face that high by purely manual methods, which was a bit dodgy. And we ended up with a great bank of spoil there, and I had to take the excavator on its crawler tracks up onto the pile and reach and scrape the face down to get the loose stuff off. John was not terribly happy about that sort of thing, but kept out of the way. Well, this is where the original railway ran, along these rails, and then the track had to be rearranged over to the place it's in now once the rock had been taken away to allow that to be done.
There was a huge push by everybody who was in town. It didn't matter what your job was, you were employed on the extension, because there was a push to get it finished for that opening ceremony on the 22nd of May. I came back for the opening ceremony, mainly because there was reputedly a good party that evening, but also because I was going to work in Abergynolwyn signal box that day with Don Southgate, the electrician, because we apparently were the only two who knew which levers did what and how it all worked. So I observed the famous Golden Spike ceremony with Winfried Vaughan Thomas.
So here we have the gold spike, which was in traditional railway methods was driven into the last sleeper, a specially prepared hole. There's a bit of a discussion amongst the Gwyrns as to whether or not we should fill the hole full of water so that when the spike was driven in it sprayed everywhere, but we were persuaded that that wasn't a good idea. So Winfried Vaughan Thomas, he drove the spike in, and after the ceremony it was withdrawn and donated to the museum, where it's been ever since, apart from occasions like today. And we remember all those years ago and all the volunteers who helped build the extension to Nant Gwernol. And people may ask why there was so much work involved. Well, it was principally to ease the gradients and to smooth the curves, because the passenger carriages we've got now, the bogie ones, they would not go around those curves, and the railway went up and down like a yo-yo. So, and this is the location of where the spike was driven.
Somewhere under there.